Good morning, Steelers Nation. Jumping on here to recap the Steelers' Week 4 loss versus the Indianapolis Colts. It's a tough one to lose there at the end, man. I got a lot of thoughts on this. Of course, I'm uploading this Monday morning because I was at the game yesterday. I had a great weekend in Indy, even aside from the result. But woke up early this morning, kind of watched the TV copy of the game. Don't have the all 22 just yet. So I've got a lot of thoughts that I want to get off my chest. As always, win, lose, anything in between. We're always going to go over the positives, negatives, all that stuff. So everybody just relax. It's going to be okay. We'll talk through it. So just before we're getting started, man, please make sure that you like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, all that stuff. It's just a free, easy way to support the channel. Drop me a comment too, just to let me know your all's thoughts on the game as well. I always enjoy like reading those. It's a good temperature gauge for me to feel, get a good sense of how the fan base is feeling. So, I really felt like this game came down to a couple different things, man. But first things first, I felt like the team kind of got caught sleepwalking a little bit through the first quarter. I mentioned it yesterday. I'm sure like it probably felt that way for you guys as well. But you just can't spot an NFL team 17 points out the gate and then expect to win the ball game. Granted they did have a chance at the end, but I don't really buy into the notion the whole trap game thing. I know a lot of people were commenting that on my preview, and then I got a lot of people tweeting at me like saying like this was a trap game, anything like that. I don't really know that I buy into that. One, I don't think that these two teams were necessarily, unevenly matched. The Colts, this was I think the Steelers were like a 2-point favorite, something like that on the road. But this Colts team, like the Steelers aren't that much better than the Colts on paper. So I don't really buy into the fact that it was a trap game. I just thought they came out flat. And it really, I think, some of that does fall on the coaching staff, for not having the guys ready to play. But I also think, the players bear a lot of responsibility to that as well. Um, just some concerning stuff coming out of the locker room, just like even post game, like, to hear a guy like Deshaun Elliott, who I think is, a pro's pro, and has had a really good start to the season, to hear him talk about, that he felt like the Steelers needed to practice better, needed to be more detail oriented in practice is a little bit of a concern for me, because it's like you guys are only 3-0. I mean, it's a little bit early in the season to be talking about, hey, we need to remain focused and be detail oriented in practice. But I just think the slow start was evident. Indy came out on fire. And you have to give credit to them too. Like, they were obviously ready to play. They came out with a purpose, moved the ball up and down the field pretty much at will. I want to talk about a lot of these different things, just as it relates to the matchup. But I think, Thursday night or so, I think I tweeted this as I was watching the Cowboys Giants game, that I thought the Steelers actually matched up with the Cowboys better than they do with the Colts. And I want to kind of expand on that process a little bit, just because like there were some people like talking about this yesterday on Twitter. But it really just comes down to Shane Steichen. I mean, we talked about it in the preview, right? Like I said, that I thought he was one of the better offensive minds in the game. And I also mentioned, this is a Colts offense that moved the ball pretty much at will up and down the field, especially in the run game last year against the Steelers. 170 yards, whatever, on the ground in that one. And, I mentioned that this wasn't necessarily a revenge game, but it was a chance for them to get their get back a little bit. But I just think when you look at like Steichen and the things that he's done against the Steelers offenses in the previous couple of years, it's notable, man. Like he's got their number right now. 2022 is the offensive coordinator in Philly. The Steelers, all these games were on the road, but, went to Philly. The Eagles put up 35 points, 401 yards on them. Last year in Indy, they put up 30 points, 372 yards. And yesterday, 27 points, 358 yards. Now, it's also worth noting that, he's played with a backup quarterback for the majority of that. Anthony Richardson only played the first couple drives. So, I mean, it's just – and I think the reason why this is the case, and like people were asking me like why, like I guess why they're have had so much trouble like with his offense over the past couple of years. And I think it really comes down to a couple of different things. For Indy specifically, I mentioned in the preview that their offensive line is like a really good offensive line. They were without their center Ryan Kelly playing a backup at the pivot yesterday, but this is a good offensive line. Like, this is one of the few offensive lines really in the league that the Steelers front, like their front four, can't just completely overwhelm and dominate. And like that's a big part of like the Steelers' success just over the first 3 weeks. Like we've seen just guys winning their individual matchups up front. Like that, a lot of what they've been doing is rushing four and playing zone coverage behind it. Well, like that strategy's good when you've got the guys that are winning up front. When you stop winning up front, it becomes an issue. Like it was an issue yesterday. And then I also just think like Steichen, aside from just being a good creative play caller, I think he schemes, his guys open. I think he sequences plays well. He understands how to set things up. Um, but I also think that he knows where the bones are buried against cover three. And what I mean by that is like, his defensive coordinator, Gus Bradley, heavy cover three guy. They play a ton of single high. They play exclusively zone coverage, pretty much no man to man reps, even yesterday that I saw. Um, but like he goes up against that stuff in practice every single day, and like he just has a really good feel for how to attack cover three. Now me personally, even though cover three is the most like popular coverage in the NFL, I also think like there's a saying that like I always go back to is like everything beats cover three. Just like if you have the time up front and you can give quarterbacks, like good quarterbacks will pick that apart. If you're just like spot dropping cover three, if you can't get home or get pressure, move quarterbacks off their spot, they didn't yesterday. Good play callers are going to scheme it up, and credit to Steichen because I mean he had the answers for the quarterbacks. And I think you got to give him credit for that. But it is something worth noting. I guess it's a good thing that he's not a play caller in the division because they only, they don't necessarily have to see him every year, but it's notable. Now, where I think I was wrong is, in the preview, I said that I thought that the Arthur Smith offense, just some of the things that, he likes to do matched up well with the Gus Bradley defense. I don't really necessarily think that I was overly impressed with the game plan yesterday or just the offense in general. Sure, I mean, they had like 400 total yards, 48% success rate. Those are all good things. And I mean, it wasn't a completely terrible performance by any means. But man, it just felt like watching live that a lot of those big plays were really just happening because Justin was kind of making things happen out of the structure of the offense, being Superman, putting the cape on, making plays outside the pocket. Some of the things he was able to do as a scrambler with his legs as well. I mean, pretty much all of the Najee Harris runs early in the game versus those stacked boxes. Of course, if you're going to play a lot of single high, they rolled a safety down, a lot of 7-8 man boxes. But I mean, that's kind of the world that the Steelers know that they're going to have to live in, right? When you're playing this much like heavy personnel, you want to get 2, 3 tight ends on the field early in the game, early in the sequences. Defenses are going to respond. They're going to roll up to the box. You have to find a way to move the ball um, without that. And I thought that the run game, just generally speaking, I mean, I think Harris finished with like 1.5 yards per carry. I mean, that just can't happen. Like this offense, like the way that it is constructed, it has to be much more efficient running the ball. And I know like I took some flack. I was really surprised by this, but I took some flack this past week. I tweeted out that the Steelers were in the bottom 5 of like rushing success rate entering this game, and people were saying like, oh, like look, they've ran for over 100 yards, like they're averaging 125 yards a game, and it's like that's good, but you have to understand like they're running the ball a ton. Like this is an offense, like they're brutally inefficient. It was better yesterday, but not really from a like pure early down rushing success rate from the running backs. Justin was honestly their most consistent runner throughout most of the day. I thought Cordero Patterson was a guy that really gave them a nice spark in the second quarter. He ripped off 3 straight 10-yard plays, which is really impressive. I think Patterson's been a bright spot over the past 2 weeks. Unfortunately, he was one of the several injuries in this one. Sounds like he had an ankle, didn't return. I'm not sure the timeline on that. I think it's also worth noting that the offensive line is banged up right now. I would be remiss if I didn't bring that up. James Daniels had a heck of a game last week. I loved how he played versus the Chargers. He exits this one early. That forces them to, put Spencer Anderson in there. Always tough. I think the game plan coming into this game was trying to reduce like his amount of snaps. So then you're playing, a rookie center, a rookie left guard, and Mason McCormick, and then you got a 7th-round second-year player at right guard. It's really tough. But at the same time, I didn't feel like they were consistently creating rushing lanes for Harris, and I also think that Harris didn't do a good enough job, making guys miss or creating for himself either. I think both of those things can and probably were true. But having said all of that, man, like they had so many chances to win this game. I went back, like I said earlier this morning, went back, watched the TV copy of the game. Man, it was just brutal. I tweeted this out after, but like, man, it feels painful watching this the second time through. But you just look at some of the bigger missed chances or missed opportunities just on the offensive side of the ball, right? Spencer Anderson, personal foul after the play, takes him out of field goal range early in the first quarter, I think. Okay, so that takes him out of field goal range. Indy gets up 17-0. Who knows? Does that change the complexion of the game? I don't know. But obviously a huge play, right? Takes points off the board. George Pickens fumbles inside the 10-yard line. George did a lot of really good things in this game, but it wasn't perfect, right? Like he had the fumble inside the 10-yard line, an absolute killer. We'd probably be talking a lot more about the drop in the end zone on the scramble from Justin if he doesn't run it in himself a couple plays later. So, like those again, that's at least 3 points, probably 7 points off the board in that instance. Justin Fields takes a sack and then subsequently fumbles on the edge of field goal range in the second half. It's really tough, like when you're shooting yourself in the foot like this. And I want to kind of clarify this, and I'll expand on this once I have like the all 22 and can kind of draw things up a little bit better. But um, that sack is on Justin. I know like people are saying like there's free rushers and stuff. What the offensive line is doing, and like you can criticize the plan up front because we talked about it. Gus Bradley, he's going to blitz on third down. They were full sliding the protection. So Indy has 5 guys on the line of scrimmage, and then they have a walked up linebacker who's like at the foot of the defensive lineman's heels, and then they have a nickel corner who is also off the edge. So they are full sliding the line to the left. That just means all the offensive linemen are gapped down. Okay. So if that corner comes off the right side of the offensive line, he is the responsibility of the quarterback. Couple things here. Fryermuth does a good job. He recognizes this pre-snap. Like they're probably going to bring more guys than we are going to have the capacity to block. All right. So Fryermuth comes off the ball. He's looking back at Fields. Fields is looking in that direction. Doesn't throw it, elects to scramble. Normally, if you're going to full slide to the left, you want the quarterback to look to the right. Like the commentators always point this out, throw into pressure. But it's also like just because the quarterback will be able to see what is coming at him. And ideally, you would like for to have some sort of hot option off the right side. Now, things played out. It happened, whatever. Um, I don't necessarily have qualms about like, sometimes defensive coordinators can just get you. They scheme up your protection. They understand your rules. They have a better play call than you have called. It is what it is. He could scramble, just throw the ball away, man. Like you're it's going to be a 50-yard field goal, but you can't take a sack. And then even worse, you put the ball on the ground. So like that was a killer play. And I do have like expanded thoughts on Justin as well. Like it wasn't, I'm just referencing this one play. And then we got the snap issue in the 2-minute drill. Just listening to the players like talk about that on my way home. Basically, being on the road, they were kind of going on a like first kick, snap count. As Justin would give the first kick, that's when the guard would tap to the center that he was ready for the ball. Justin kicks, McCormick taps the center. Frazier kind of waits a second, but then Indy rotates the safety. So it looked like Justin was trying to get them into a better play call based on the contour of the defensive structure. And then, next thing happens, like he's not ready for the ball. Probably if anything, just a consistent communication issue. I mean, this like you just can't have this many snap issues like this early in the season. It's been an issue through preseason. We've talked about it over the first month. It's just unacceptable. Like you just got to get it together, get it figured out. It's just not normal for NFL offenses to have this many issues in that regard. And then also like you have to give credit where credit's due, but Flacco converted some huge third downs in this one. Just really tough to watch. I mean, third and long after third and long, even at the Steelers get the ball back. After they finally got the ball in the end zone, I think it was 17-10. Defense comes out, gives up 2 3rd-and-10s and a 3rd-and-7 on the same exact drive. And then on the touchdown to the tight end over the middle, you got Beanie Bishop. He's playing man coverage. I think Joey Porter might be playing man coverage too. Everyone else is in zone. So boom, wide open, 14-point lead. Just really sloppy from the defense overall. Some individual performances that I kind of wanted to get to. I'll talk a little bit about Justin real quick, just because I know a lot of people are probably gonna be curious about thoughts on that. I thought Justin played fairly well, man, to be completely honest with you. I was encouraged by a lot of the things that I saw. I mentioned that most of the Steelers like best offensive plays were really like him out of structure, like making things happen. With his legs. I don't think the offense ever felt fully in sync, but his ability to thrive outside of structure was really a big reason that they were able to climb back into this one. Pair of scrambles in the low red zone to put points on the board. I thought he did a good job keeping his eyes up after he exited the pocket to find some big plays. He had the big play to Fryermuth for like a 30-yard gain, and then he hit Pickens late in the down too on a second reaction type of play. He, like I said, I thought he was really consistent. They got the quarterback run game going. Think they kind of saw. We talked about Green Bay kind of taking advantage of the Indy front a little bit in that regard. I thought the Steelers were able to do some good things there. And then like just even in like going back to the red zone thing, the second rushing touchdown was just an awesome play for him because like what they're trying to do is Indy's playing man coverage and the play call is actually a fairly good one. They're trying to run a pick at the bottom of the screen, and they're trying to get Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson. They're trying to like pick each other and get the defenders to run into each other. Hopefully, get a score. Indy passes it off great. Like both the receivers get jammed up. There's no separation at all. Justin gets out the pocket. He lowers his shoulder, dives into the end zone. I mean, it's an excellent play from him, and I think that really is what he brings to the offense. Like it's. I tweeted this yesterday, and I've said this over and over and over again, but Justin's not ever going to play. I don't want to say ever because I hate speaking in absolutes, but like it's normally not going to look pretty for a 60-minute game. Okay. Like he's probably not ever going to thrive in structure on a down to down basis. It's not going to look overly consistent. But some of the dynamic elements of what he brings to the offense as a runner, as a scrambler, and the explosive pass plays down the field, like, are kind of where you can offset that a little bit. And I thought that, he did that. The throw to Pickens down the left sideline was excellent. Like I said, the turnover, the fumble, inexcusable, can't happen for a fourth year quarterback. I think he definitely bears some, if not most of the responsibility on the snap issue late in the game in the 2-minute drill. But I thought like he was good enough yesterday to give them a chance to win the game in a game where I thought the defensive performance was really, really poor. So I think that's really about as much as I could ask for. I mean, I have heard some different rumblings about that Russ may be ready to go against Dallas. I don't know what the thought process is there. I mean, I already saw people like saying that they think that they should go back to Russ, like kind of fans, just like overreactions and stuff after the game. But I think just like looking at it, man, just we have a month sample size. It's still a small sample size. We have a month now. Fields ranks 13th in EPA per play, 18th in success rate, 6th in completion percentage over expected, which is not a stat that I really weigh too heavily. But I mean, coming into the season, I think it's all about your expectations and perception, right? But coming into the season, I said all along, I thought that whether it was Russ or Justin, I felt confident that one of those two guys is going to be able to give the Steelers competent quarterback play, right? And competent quarterback play is you give me the 18th or the 20th best quarterback play in the NFL, and I'll be happy with that, right? And I think, like, for the most part, they've got that. Like, I think that Justin has been mostly fine. Has it been perfect? No, it's not been perfect. And I don't think it's going to be. But I do think that there's been encouraging things that we've seen in terms of like development. And I think that he's done some things himself to give the Steelers a chance to win the game. They're 3-1 with him as a starter. If it's up to me, which it's not, my opinion is that they should just keep rolling him out there. I think that some of the things that he does, mitigate some of the weaknesses up front that they're having right now. But we'll see. I don't know like what's going to happen with that. I would anticipate that he's going to remain the starter, but I genuinely don't know. So it is what it is with that. But that's just kind of my thoughts. I thought, he played fairly well yesterday, gave them a chance to win the game, and unfortunately things just didn't work out in the end. And it's a shame because I really wanted that one, not just for the fans, whatever, but I wanted that one for him too, because it would have been a really cool moment for him to kind of lead them back from behind, because we had been questioning what's this offense going to look like if they do fall behind early in a game, and we got the chance to see it. And I thought that he was a big factor in that. Just for some other like individual performances that I want to talk about, talked a little bit about Najee, just the inefficiency running the ball. I also think that not going out of bounds on the third down play on the last drive of the game just cannot happen. I understand you're trying to make something happen there, but it's like you either have to make that guy miss or you got to get out of bounds. Like you can't get tackled in bounds and let the clock roll off. I thought Tomlin really should have called a timeout there. It's 4th and 11. I understand that you need a field goal to tie the game up, right? And there's 40 seconds left or whatever there is left. But at the end of the day, like if you don't have a good plan to convert on 4th and 11, it doesn't matter. Like they ended up taking the timeout home with them. So it's like, I personally would have preferred them to call a timeout, even if the crowd's able to get loud, whatever. Like get your guys settled. Give me your best play, one that the quarterback likes, one that the offensive coordinator likes. Try to get the ball to 14. And unfortunately, like that stuff didn't happen. But just that sequence of plays, man, it was mind-boggling how frustrating it was that they found a way to lose in that. And then some other like good things I thought. Calvin Austin had a third down and long reception that moved the chains in the first quarter. He also had the big punt return for a 30-yard gain or so, I think, in the second half, which set them up in the field goal range. Of course, they didn't end up getting points out of that as either, but I think that, Calvin's been, in terms of like my expectations, like I think that Calvin is probably like a wide receiver 4 in this league. And if he's going to continue to give you like positive plays in the punt return department, which I think he's been fine, I think that this is a good development for the Steelers. Now, unfortunately, due to no fault of his own, he is being miscast in terms of like they have no real weapons at the receiver room outside of Pickens. Like he's being miscast, meaning like they're having to play him as basically a wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3, whereas like really ideally he'd be bumped down a notch. But I do think that there's been some good things with him. Obviously, he had the crazy game last week. I like to see young players stack good performances. I thought the interior defensive line did a fairly decent job. Yesterday, I thought Cam Hayward was really their only consistent pass rush on the day. I think he had like 3 quarterback hits. He had the huge sack in the fourth quarter on the final drive where he got to Flacco. That resulted in them ended up punting the ball back to the Steelers, giving them a chance to at least go try to tie the game at the buzzer. I thought he made some good plays in the run game as well. I thought Larry Ogunjobi was really active. Indy was having a really hard time reaching him on the backside of their zone runs. He ran down 2 or 3 plays from the backside in this one. And he also had a really nice pass rush. I think they credit him for half a sack or whatever in that one as well. But, Benton had some flashy plays in the backfield. I thought overall, like the run defense really wasn't terrible. Obviously, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that like Indy's run game completely changes, like when they don't have the 6'5", 250-pound cyborg in there and Anthony Richardson. Like you can see it coming out the gate. Steelers started flat, but like it's a big difference when you have a guy that runs like he does and you trade him out for like a statue in Joe Flacco. Just their zone read stuff, a lot of their offense just like changes up front. But I do think after the first drive or two, the Steelers front like really settled down in terms of like being able to do some good things, controlling the point of attack a little bit better. 33% rushing success rate is pretty good, especially for a guy like Jonathan Taylor. He broke some big runs and like he's a heck of a bag, but I thought for the most part, they did a decent job against the run for the majority of the game. Some negatives, I would say. I didn't think Nick Herbig was overly effective. I'll have to go back and watch the tape on that, but I thought the linebackers in general, including the edges, were really underwhelming in this one. Herbig, like they ran at him a lot in this game. I thought early in the game, like he was undisciplined. Like guys get outside of him. He was trying to like wrong arm some pullers without a spill, try to spill runs outside, and there was nobody to spill to. Just miscommunications or just undisciplined play, whatever. But I didn't think that he was a consistent factor in this one. I know he got banged up a little bit, so that's worth mentioning. I thought TJ, like this was like the quietest game I can ever remember. Like I put this in my post game for Steelers Now, but I kept waiting for TJ to make that play because it's like normally you get in these close moments in fourth quarter and he just always finds a way to like make some splash play to make things happen. He just didn't yesterday. It was really weird. I thought Braden Smith did a really good job on him. I know that they probably sent some chips and everything, but like he's seen it all. I mean, this is stuff that he's going to encounter on a weekly basis. He just wasn't. He didn't make an impact yesterday. To be honest with you, and that was kind of disappointing. And then I thought the linebackers didn't play particularly well either. I think that I mentioned this when I was on John Ledyard's podcast last week, but I think the fit between like Peyton Wilson and Patrick Queen like is just a funky one, and I understand why they did that because Indy's heavy 11 personnel, probably not trying to expose Roberts to passing situations, but like Peyton Wilson's not ready to play as a pass coverage guy right now. Like the zone spacing in the middle of the field was horrendous yesterday. The linebackers do bear some responsibility in that. They're asking him to go out there and cover like Josh Downs out of the slot. Like that's not going to be a competitive matchup. Like he's not ready for that. Like there's nothing on his NC State tape that says he's ready for that type of stuff. So it's like, I don't know. It just feels like you've got two kind of finessey inside linebackers trying to play the run. And it's just, I don't know. I don't think that the tandem excites me as much as I think it excites a lot of other people. I don't think Patrick Queen had a good first half yesterday. He overran a tackle. I saw he missed a tackle that led to an explosive run. Coverage, again, was a complete issue in the middle of the field. Anything Indy wanted in between the numbers, they had it. And then even like the secondary, like Minka They threw at him on a 3rd and long conversion. Of course, he had the penalty, which was, like, completely garbage, I'm pretty sure. At least from my vantage point, it was. I thought Deshaun Elliott played well. Um, Joey Porter, he was in good position for several different plays, but he couldn't finish at the catch point, which was kind of disappointing. Definitely like the most catches I think he's given up in quite a while. So I don't know, just disappointing day for the defense. I think, obviously when you give up that many points, I thought the spot drop cover three stuff, and they never adjusted. They didn't try really anything else. I didn't really feel like they brought any type of like pressure at Flacco. Just the 3rd and long conversions, man, they were mind boggling. Like you can't let a backup do the come in the game and like feel that comfortable. And I understand like Tomlin like talked about in the post game, like said that they spent all week preparing for Anthony Richardson. They get Joe Flacco, and I understand that. That's like I'm not trying to say it's a totally invalid excuse, but like they've seen Flacco 30 times over the course of his career. Like Joe Flacco's still doing the same thing. He's still the same quarterback. It's a different offense, but like you're going to be familiar. You've played this offense in years past. I don't know. I just don't really buy the excuse, and like the fact that like Flacco was just like so immobile and just a statue back there. They still couldn't get pressure on him. Was madly, madly frustrating. Um, I think that pretty much does it for me. Just in terms of individual performances. I'm excited to go back to the tape. Of course, in stadium perspective is a little bit different than watching on TV. So I'm excited to go back to the tape and really kind of get a better feel for what happens. But if there's one thing I've learned about like creating content, over the years, just fandom breeds emotion, and I get that. Players want to win. You guys do too. I want to win. But I get on here and try to give you guys like my unfiltered, objective takes each week. Uh, but just an attempt to like not get too high, too low. And I think there's rare occasions where feel more compelled to do so. But at the end of the day, I think all of us could look at this thing if we could rewind it back to like June and someone told all of us that they're going to be 3-1 after the first month. I think pretty much everybody would take that result, right? So I don't think they played the toughest schedule in the world necessarily, but opening up with 3 or 4 on the road, obviously isn't a cakewalk either. And you play who's in front of you. I think the results being 3-1 ahead of like atop the AFC North right now. Of course, Baltimore won last night, so the race is a little bit closer. But I think that result is fine. Okay, I think it's fine. The sky's not falling. That being said, this is a flawed team with a lot of stuff, that needs to be improved upon. But overall, I think they've been pretty competitive. There's been some encouraging developments, which is a nice segue to what the kind of week will look like for me. Just try to get to 1 to 2 film rooms this week, one on the public side, another one to the member side. So if you guys are looking for even more content from me, exclusive perks, including early access to videos, extra film rooms, things like that, be sure to check that out. Link will be in the description. It's the price of a small coffee per month, so I definitely think it's worth it for you guys if you're looking for more of that stuff. One thing I plan on doing really throughout the season, which is going to be new to the channel, is like a quarterly type of check-in. Of course, now it's a little bit difficult to do quarters because there's a 17 game season, but I kind of just want to give my thoughts on where the team's at, kind of where they're going, where they need to go, players trending upwards, players trending downwards, just a look at like the AFC landscape in general. Kind of a longer form video, probably, I don't know, like 20, 30 minutes or whatever. But I'm interested to see the feedback on if that's something that you guys like. I'm just trying to, continue to find more ways to keep the content fresh for you guys. But also just don't forget to check out our channel sponsor, Homage, for all your Steelers gear needs. I was in Indy all week, walking around downtown. I was rocking my Homage merch. So got a lot of compliments on it, sent a lot of people their way. Tons of stuff on there worth checking out. So as always, I really appreciate your all support. Try to stay up. Lots of content coming from you to you guys over the next couple of days, and I will check you guys soon.